We have tons of news to talk about today. Trump, Biden, is this going to wreck our bags? Is it going to send us to the moon? Stay tuned and we'll cover it all. All right, guys, let's just jump straight into this. So on Friday, President Biden vetoed a resolution that would have allowed banks to hold crypto on their balance sheet. And it's actually more nuanced than that, but we'll just keep it simple here. And basically, this was expected. This is not a surprise. A lot of people see this as very bearish, but I'm going to kind of flip that narrative on its head, because they had already said they were going to do this several weeks ago, before the administration and Democrats in general had started to shift more positively towards crypto. And evidence of that is Joe Biden has actually reached out, apparently, from insiders. I don't know who these people are, but there is rumors that the Biden administration is like reaching out to actually placate some of the crypto figureheads in the industry. I don't know which ones. The sources, I think, are fairly reliable here, but this is really to be expected, okay? So again, the veto was already planned. This is not new. If they didn't veto that, they would be lying, because they said they were going to do this weeks ago. And after Trump started coming out, becoming super pro-crypto, we know that last week, or maybe it was the week before, where the White House actually put out a bill, or a statement, saying that, hey, we're going to be very, we're not going to veto the FIT 21 bill, which is way more important than this bill, in my opinion. This is that bill we talked about in the last video. It's a general framework for crypto legislation in the United States. They said, hey, we'll support that if it gets through. It has gotten through the House. We'll talk more about this later. It's probably not going to get through the Senate very easy. But I actually think that the White House, believe it or not, despite the narratives and a lot of the talk on Twitter and such, I think the White House is actually going to be pro-crypto. And I think going forward, this is not going to be a partisan issue. And we can see that Wall Street actually asked Biden to not veto this bill, according to, I guess, insiders, which we'll have to take the source's word for it. And that's a pretty big statement. That means that Wall Street wants to play ball. They want to play the game here. They want to get in crypto. They want to be able to, enjoy a lot of the benefits, or what I should say, the gains that have been made in crypto over the last, decade since its inception. So they want to play ball here, and this should not be surprising. This is a revolution. It's an innovative technology. It is the digitization of finance. It is so many other things. So this is just normal. Like, we should expect this. Why hasn't it happened already is what we should be asking ourselves. So even though the market might perceive some of the news, specifically this news here that we got about the veto, they see this as bearish. They were going to do this either way, because they already said they were going to do it. Now, I'm sure there'll be some kind of bill, whether it's Biden or Trump, that will come through that will reverse this, considering what Wall Street wants, they will probably get. That's just my personal opinion. So I'm very, very bullish here. Let's talk a little bit about the economic events coming up next week. We have ISM manufacturing on Monday. We have JOLTS on Tuesday. We have ISM services PMI on Wednesday. We have unemployment claims on Thursday. And then we have the big one to top off the week with the NFP print that will be coming out on Friday. So this is a very, very big week, considering NFP is always big, but some of these other data points are, can kind of have an outsized punch here, because we're in the summer. There's not a lot of volume, not a lot of liquidity. So, or at least as much as you would get, let's say, towards the end of the year or beginning of the year. And it can have an outsized punch, meaning if you have a bunch of algos that get triggered because of any one of these headlines, there's just not a lot of liquidity to kind of backstop that, to really kind of mitigate big moves. So I usually don't even focus on some of these things, but they are important during this time of the year, where kind of like everything sort of matters, again, because the books are thin. And if you don't understand what that really means, join the Discord. We talk a lot about, order flow, level 2 data, and stuff like that. We're going to keep this kind of simple in this video. let's talk a little bit about the technicals here. We're going to keep this video pretty short in general, but I want to talk about the technicals here. So right now we're looking at Bitcoin. We can see that Bitcoin is currently flirting with what I'm going to say is the value area high, which is like, roughly 69.5. Okay. And our value area low is roughly like 62. Okay. What does that mean? Again, we cover a lot of this stuff in the Discord, but this is the range that you have developed, and traders are seeing this area as a decent place to sell and this area as a decent place to buy. And there's different reasons for this, market making and other things. But this is sort of our range, and these are kind of like deviations outside of the range. You can kind of look at it like that. Technically, this is the range low, this is the range high, and then you really don't have a true POC here, but we'll just say that this is the 67 area. It's kind of your POC. Again, we'll talk more about that in the Discord. Right now, I just want to zoom out here and kind of give you a perspective on why this is a very critical spot for Bitcoin. This range right here, in my opinion, is starting to look a lot like this range we developed down here early December through early February, where we had the ETF, we had to sell the news, and then we had some consolidation and a move up. This sort of reminds me of this, in that this is very constructive price action. We've been putting in higher lows here, and this is just, anybody that has been trading for a while knows that this is not a bearish pattern here, what you're seeing here. This is accumulation before the break higher, in my opinion. Okay. Now, like I said, we have NFP next week, which the market may wait for that. I mean, logically, I would say that's probably the greater possibility, is that the market will wait to see how that plays out. But let's just assume that we do get a as expected NFP or a lower than expected NFP. I think we have a decent chance of breaking out. And I hope that's the case, because I think the closer we get to August and September, the less likely that you're going to be able to break this range, given some of the volatility that we may see, some of the hedging we may see going into the election. So as of right now, we need to break this value area high. We need to hold above it to be able to push higher. And let's say that doesn't happen. Okay. Always be prepared for, different scenarios. If we look at the daily here, we can pull out some of our handy moving averages we like to use. And I think if you just hold this 64.5, basically this 50-day moving average, things look pretty good. If we get down to this 100-day moving average, which is has some confluence with this value area low, we would definitely want it. This is kind of your gotta hold level, the 63 roughly. I do believe we would hold this 65K level roughly if we did get there. So very bullish here in my opinion. We do have data coming up. Markets are kind of thin right now given this is summer, kind of slow period, but that can change very quickly if we start to get some good green candles where people are then kind of kicked into gear, so to speak. They're incentivized to start paying attention and deploying capital. Let's take a look at ETH here. We can see that ETH is still kind of in this constructive phase after this initial breakout on the ETF news. I think this looks great. It doesn't surprise me that it's sort of consolidating right here, because this move was just like shorts closing and people triggering buys on the initial headline that the ETF had a greater possibility of being approved. And this is sort of like the trading firms, the bigger guys who are like, all right, well, it's time to get into this thing, right? So this will take some time, I think, for people to get in. And I'm not expecting this to really stay here all that long, but you never really know. Again, given the seasonally slow, low liquidity time that we're in, that means that people have to wait longer to get filled on big positions. So this could take a while, but this looks very bullish to me. And further evidence of that is the ETH BTC chart, which I think actually looks still pretty good. You did have a little bit of a down move today, but it's still holding up in this area. I think that we have quite a bit of wiggle room here for ETH BTC, meaning it could chop around anywhere in this area here, and it still looks pretty bullish. As long as we stay above this previous trend line, above here, I think this thing looks pretty darn good. So I'm focusing on ETH and BTC mainly, as you can see, and ETH versus USD, Bitcoin versus USD, and then ETH versus Bitcoin, as that's sort of my gauge on which one is stronger. But I think exposure to both makes a lot of sense. They both look pretty strong here. And as we talked about in the last video, I believe it was the last video, we are keeping an eye on Solana. It just isn't really giving me quite the same signals that ETH and Bitcoin are giving. I wouldn't be surprised if we filled out this gap here, or maybe even filled out this box we have here, but I do believe you would find buyers between 150 to 160. So we'll definitely be keeping an eye on that in the Discord. But like I said, I don't really want to cover too much in this video. I want to keep it simple, not bog you down with a bunch of altcoins. We'll talk more about that in our weekly trading plan that we'll have in the Discord. We hope that you join in and you know, be part of the community. And until next time, happy hunting, friends.